like to amend my statement to a certain extent when I called it a brutal schedule. USC, to its credit, and I've always said this, I very much am impressed and give credit to USC for going out and scheduling Notre Dame and almost always a second big time opponent. They don't this year in 2025. So brutal non-conference schedule, arguably the toughest non-conference schedule in college football with only 3 games. And even the Utah State is no just completely run over type opponent. And then, of course, LSU and Notre Dame versus a Big Ten schedule, which, of course, they can't control, but no Ohio State, no Oregon, and not even in Illinois or in Iowa. They played the second seed, roughly, no Indiana, if you want to take it to that degree, which sounds a bit ridiculous, but they were a playoff team. And so USC did catch a bit of a break in conference.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, Matt.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I certainly agree. I think that a lot of it was, I think, more atmosphere based. I think that, Matt brought up Ann Arbor. I was at that game. And basically the entire first half, the offense looked just completely petrified. And the play calling also, and just, it was like, they didn't know what to do with 120,000 screaming fans when they'd been going to games in Tempe where half the stadium was full for, the entirety of the program's existence and the entirety of Lincoln Riley's first 2 years. So some tough environments, maybe, yes, like Minnesota was a full stadium as well. But these games like Maryland and Washington are also tough environments, but they're not comparable to like an Ohio State and a Michigan. So I think that while across the board there was some adjustment to the atmospheres, there was a lot of, in terms of the football players on the field, not as quite as crazy of a schedule as there could have been. But I think it'll especially be interesting to see this year with a lot of the players having the experience now under their belt going to some of these iconic Big Ten stadiums. But Maiyava didn't play in any of those games. So his 4 games were 2 home games, and then UCLA, which is basically a home game, and then the Vegas Bowl, which I was told was primarily USC fans as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he specifically adjusts to these Big Ten environments, because he's a Mountain West kid, and he only played in the Coliseum and the Rose Bowl and Vegas last year, basically. So.
Yeah, well, we talked about Mark accurately noting that USC did not have the most brutal Big Ten schedule possible last year. It's the same this year. No Penn State, no Ohio State. And when we all saw the schedule come out, I think a lot of us here at USC, people who follow the program, we're all pretty unanimous in saying, you know what, you got to win 9 games. You need to go 9-3 against this schedule. You might not be as good as Michigan. Okay, Michigan's supposed to be really, really good. You might not be as good as Notre Dame. Notre Dame was the runner-up last year. Marcus Freeman has that program rocking and rolling. The games in South Bend, yeah, you might lose that one. And then you have to go to Oregon to face Dan Lanning and the Ducks in Autzen Stadium. You know what? You might lose that game. But all the other 9, you should have the better team in that matchup. And obviously, one thing that's changed relative to the end of the season, when we were talking here in November and December of 2024 here at the Voice of College Football, the one thing that's changed is that Chad Bowden's arrival and the 2026 recruiting class being as good as it is. What that has changed is Lincoln Riley is no longer on the hot seat this year. That is different, because it's all about, okay, we're finally going to give Chef Lincoln the groceries, the elite Whole Foods level groceries in 2026. So we're not going to fire him even if 2025 isn't good. But had Bowden not come in and had the 2026 recruiting not gone into overdrive the way it has, Lincoln Riley would be on the hot seat, and we would be measuring the hot seat in that very easy way that I just outlined. You got to win the 9 that you're supposed to win. We can debate the 3 really tough ones, but you better win the 9 games that you're supposed to win. And that to me represents, how good this season is at USC.